Good evening, everybody. It's Venerable Chandima. Today, I'm going to talk about a very important topic. Actually, the topic that we're going to talk about is what to be resorted to and what not to be resorted to increasing kusala, skillful, and to diminish akusala, unskilled. We're going to take a look at of the deciding variables of increasing kusala and decreasing or diminishing akusala in a sutra. Actually, the sutra that we're going to talk about today is Sevitabbāsevitabba Sutta. This is the sutra that we're going to pick today to talk about what needs to be, what kind of things that we should be resorted to, and what kind of things that we should not be resorted to increase kusala or skillful, or not to be resorted. That's about to diminish akusala. So first, let's take a look at the name of the sutra, Sevitabbāsevitabba Sutta. Now, here is a combination. Sevitabba means a combination. So we need to decombine this word. Sevitabba means to be resorted to. So when you decombine, you get the other part. That's asevitabba. Asevitabba means not to be resorted to. Now, when I looked at different translations, I found the Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation has given Sevitabba means to be cultivated, Asevitabba means not to be cultivated. But when you look at the word which comes from Pali, Sevitabba means not cultivation at this point. That is to resorting or not resorting, Asevitabba. So let's keep that in our mind to understand the name of the sutra. So once again, I'm gonna actually tell you the meaning. Sevitabba means the sutra which tells us which tells us how to increase kusala and how to decrease akusala based on different factors. And to make that happen, we need to actually understand there are things to be developed, things to be resorted to, and there are things not to be developed, not to be resorted to. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So first of all, I would like to tell you that there are 16 deciding variables that we're going to talk about to understand what are the things that we should be resorted to, what are the things that we should not be resorted to in the sutra. The first is the kaya samachara in Pali. Kaya samachara means bodily conduct. Number 2, vaci samachara, verbal conduct. Number 3, mano samachara, mental conduct. Number 4, chittuppada, inclination of mind. So what to be inclined, what to be inclined with your mind. Number 5 is sanya patilabha. That means sanya is perception, patilabha is acquisition. So the acquisition of mind. So what you should be done with that acquisition of mind. Number 6, ditti patilabha, the acquisition of view. So the fifth one, number 5 is sanya means the acquisition of perception, not the mind. And ditti patilabha, number 6, means the acquisition of view. Number 7, atta patilabha, atta bhava patilabha. Atta bhava patilabha means the acquisition of individuality, the conventional self, right? Because in the ultimate teachings of the Buddha talks about not self, but here in this context he talks about conventional self. Okay. And number 8 is 12 types of sense faculties and their objects. It's like, eye consciousness and like, chakku vinyaya rupa, so the forms cognizable by eye consciousness, something like that. So there are 12, right? Because 6 and 6, the opposite 6, there are 12. So that's actually 8. So those cognizable things. And 9 is clothing, 10 is food, 11 is resting places, and then villages, towns, cities, districts, and persons. So these are the deciding variables to increase our kusala and to diminish akusala. So Buddha talks about there are things that we need to be resorted to. There are things that we should not be resorted to in making this happen. I mean, to increase the kusala and to diminish the akusala. Let's take a look at. So each deciding variable has 2 parts. Now, if you take the first one, that's kaya samachara, that means bodily conduct. It is of 2 kinds. So sevitabbampi, asevitabbampi. That means to be resorted to. It has 2 parts: to be resorted to, not to be resorted to. Now, what we need to be resorted to in terms of bodily conduct to increase kusala and to diminish akusala. Actually, there are 3 main deciding variables. As you know, those are the 3 main actions we do with our body, right? So then, not killing, not stealing, not misbehaving, right? So the part that is related to the to the kusala part is that you are not going to execute any killing, any hurting and stuff, and then you are not going to stealing, you are not going to misbehave in your pleasures. So that is what we need to be resorted to, right? So the opposite, killing, stealing, and misbehaving in your sensual pleasures, those are the parts that are not to be resorted to, right? So you understand. So based on the bodily conduct, there are 3 main things that we need to increase. Those are not killing, not stealing, not misbehaving in sensual pleasures. So if we keep doing that, that means we are actually continuing and we are increasing our kusala side, skillful side. Okay. Now, to each deciding variables, Buddha talks about a statement that is called tancha anyamanyang samacharang. That means the bodily conduct is either the one or the other. Now, when you are increasing good things, you are not making bad things happen. We are not making akusala happen. When you are, let's say, for some reasons you are increasing akusala, then that means you are not anyway making kusala increasing, or you are not making any good things happen, right? So you are going to be on one side if you're going to execute one side of these 2. Let's say if you are good, that means you are really good. You are actually increasing your kusala by ways of not killing, not stealing, not misbehaving. But if you are killing, if you are stealing, if you are up for misbehaving, that means you are not into increasing of kusala at any cost. Okay, so that's what this statement means. Tancha anyamanyang samachara. Now we moving on to the second one, that's called vachi samachara. So verbal conduct. So how do we increase our kusala and to diminish our akusala based on verbal conduct? As you know, there are four ways of misusing our verbal conduct, right? So if you are up to lying, if you are up for slandering, if you are up for using words to hurt somebody, if you are, or to a group of people, if you are up for talking things that are not really actually meaningful and not timely, not actually beneficent, not actually making sense, actually, in short. So I mean, all in all, you're gonna be an idle chatter. So those are the 4 bad things that break your verbal conduct. So then you're gonna have a verbal misconduct. If you are not going to lie, if you are not going to slander, if you are not going to chatter, that means you are resorting to the right good things. If you are not doing those 4, that means those are the things that you should not be resorted to, right? So if you are resorting to the good side of those 4, that means you are increasing your kusala, skillful side of your words. And then if you are not executing, if you are not using those good side of those 4 types of words, that means you are on a kind of a side that you are not supposed to be resorted to. Okay, so that's the second thing, deciding variable. The third one is mano samachara, which we call mental conduct. So what is mental conduct? Now, in the mental conduct, what we say is that there are 2 things that we should be resorted to, while there are 2 things that we should not be resorted to: increasing our kusala, or skillful side of your mental thoughts, and to diminish your akusala, the unskillful side of your thoughts. So the first thing that you need to consider in increasing your kusala is to reduce your covetousness, which we call abhijja. So abhijja is not the greed. Abhijja means that I would actually read the Pali statement in the sutra. Yang tang parassa paravittupakaranaṃ tang abhijjata hoti. Aho vata yang parassa tang mama assati. Here someone is covetous. He or she covets the wealth and the property of others. Thus, oh, may what belongs to another be mine. So this is kind of a statement that could pop up in their mind, which means that they are pretty much not tolerable about the others' possessions and properties. Now, I believe actually when someone is up for abhijja or covetousness, that means the immediate next thing that will happen to that person is stealing. Because when you are into covetousness, that means you like other people's things, and then you are far more susceptible to stealing, and then kind of like robbing others' things. So the first thing that you need to consider is that you should not increase abhijja. You need to diminish your abhijja, covetousness. And then vyapada means ill will, right? Ill will means in Pali, I would read the Pali statement. Vyapanna chitto kopana hoti padutta mana sankappo ime satta hanyantua vajjantua uchchijjantua vinassantua mava ahisunti. That's how the sutra reads. He or she has a mind of ill will and intentions of hate. Thus, may those beings be slain and slaughtered. May they be cut off, perish, or be annihilated. So, pretty much, I would say any intentions that you have to hurt other people, right? To hurt other people. So now, I can say that when somebody is up for abhijja or covetousness, that means that person is up for stealing. Also, when someone is up for vyapada or ill will, that person is up for killing, right? Because before actually murdering somebody or a being, you usually come up with some thoughts of killing, hurting, intentions of making that happen, right? So be careful. So these two cause you to perform the mental misconduct. So what Buddha asks us to do is we need not to encourage abhijja or covetousness in our mind. We need not encourage ill will in our mind. So then we are good. That means we are into mental conduct. Also, that means we are resorted to the good side of this. That means we are increasing kusala. We are diminishing akusala attached to that. Right? So that is the third deciding variable. So number 4 is Chittuppada. Chittuppada means inclination of mind. Now our mind is waiting to get inclined to things, right? Then Buddha here asks us to do a nice thing. That means we need to think about 4 things to understand about the inclination of mind, Chittuppada. That means to encourage 4 things, and that means let go of 4 things and let go of 4 other things. The first thing is that if someone is covetous, if someone abides with his or her mind imbued with covetousness, if someone has a ill will, if someone abides with his or her mind imbued with ill will. That means there are 4 ways of using inclination of your mind towards akusala. That means to be covetous and to have a mind which is mixed up with covetousness, and also has ill will and has a mind mixed up with or imbued with ill will. So we need not to encourage those 4 ways of inclination of mind. So if your mind is inclined to these things, so do not let them happen. You need to switch your mind into 4 other inclinations. Those are not to be covetous, not to have your mind imbued with covetousness, not to have your mind towards ill will, and not to have your mind imbued with ill will. So those are the 4 ways of increasing kusala and to diminish akusala. We call it Chittuppada. Number 5 is Sanya Patilabha. Sanya is perception. Patilabha is the acquisition or the gain. So we get to gain perception all the time. Right? Perception means that you have an initial understanding of anything, right? You and around you or beyond you. So there are the same thing applies to sanya too. If your sanya has covetousness, if your perception has covetousness, if your perception is mixed up or imbued with covetousness, if your perception has ill will, if your perception is imbued with ill will, that means you are not good. That means you are increasing your akusala, unskilled side of those things. You need not. You need to think about those 4 and not them happen in the same way that they are supposed to be, in this context. So what you need to do is that you need to have your perception free from covetousness. You need to have your perception not imbued with covetousness, and you need to have your perception free from ill will, and you need to have your perception not imbued with ill will. So those are the 4 ways of increasing your kusala and diminishing your akusala based on the variable, deciding variable called the acquisition of perception. And number 6 is Ditti Patilabha. Ditti Patilabha means the acquisition of view, the acquisition or gain of view. So right after the perception, what happens is that perception builds up a fixed type of view of anything. That is kind of a very serious thing. once you have a perception that causes to build up a view. So that means a type of distortion of the reality. But here Buddha says that we need to be resorted to 10 types of things to increase our kusala, and we need not to be resorted to the opposite of those 10. What are they? So these 10, this list is very important, because this is the basic 10 types of things that would make us not into the akusala side of the view. I would actually read the 10. Natti dinnang, there is nothing called given. Natti ittang, there is nothing called offered. Natti hutang, there is nothing called sacrifice. Natti sukata dukkatanang kammanam palavipaku, there is no fruit or result of good and bad karma. Natti ayang loko, there is no this world. Natti paro loko, there is no other world. Natti mata, there is no mother. Natti pita, there is no father. Natti satta upapatika, there is no beings who are reborn spontaneously. Natti loke samana brahmana, sammaggata samma patipanna, ye imancha lokam parancha lokam, sayang abhinya satchikatva pavedenti. That means there are no recluses or monks, monastic people, monastic community who have already attained spiritual attainments, and then who advise the people, this is good, this is bad, and this is holistic, this is not holistic, this is harmonious, this is not harmonious. So these 10, if somebody does not believe in these 10, that means that person increases akusala. If someone believes in these 10, if someone's view is a combination of these 10, that means he has the right view at this point. So he has the acquisition of view, which he himself, or which she herself put into the right place, which you call, if somebody is believing in these 10, that person is already resorted to the right type of things. If somebody is not believing these 10, that means that person is not resorted to the right type of view. And then atta bhava patilabha. So atta bhava patilabha is the other deciding factor, or the deciding variable. Atta bhava patilabha, atta means the conventional I. Now Buddha talks about there's no self at the ultimate level, but there is a conventional self that we call me, I, me, myself. But we know that there's no I, me, myself. But for conventional purposes, we use there's an I at this point, self. Now, for the conventional type of self, Buddha talks about there are two things that one has to think about in terms of akusala and kusala. If someone, let's say, when a person generates an acquisition of individuality or self, that is subject to affliction. If someone's nature of the self is to hurt other people, like to kill other people, for example, like in short, hurting, harming other people, that is not helping that person to increase kusala and to diminish akusala. But when a person generates an acquisition of self, this conventional self, that is free from affliction, that is free from harming other people. The nature of someone's self is not to harm, not to hurt other people. That means we call it abhyapajja. That is the right type of acquisition of individuality or self, and that helps that person to increase kusala and to diminish akusala. And then Buddha talks about, actually the Buddha poses the questions and the brief answers, and then Venerable Sariputta explains all these explanatory notes. Chakku viññaya rupa, sota viññaya saddha, gāna viññaya gandha, jivha viññaya rasa, kaya viññaya pottabba, mano viññaya dhamma. That means forms cognizable by the eye of two kinds. So whatever the forms, images cognizable by the eye are two kinds. Those are forms that are to be resorted to, forms that are not to be resorted to. Sounds cognizable by the ear, they are of two kinds. So sounds that need to be resorted to, sounds that not needed to be resorted to. And odors cognizable by nose, flavors cognizable by the tongue, tangibles cognizable by the body, mind objects cognizable by the mind. So any of these things, you could pick any of these things. So all these have a side of kusala and a side of akusala. So if you are thinking there are sounds that you need to be resorted to, there are sounds that you need not to be resorted to, there are odors that you need to be resorted to, there are odors that you need not to be resorted to, flavors that you need to be resorted to, flavors that you need not to be resorted to, tangibles that you need to be resorted to, tangibles you need not to be resorted to, mind objects that you need to be resorted to, mind objects that you need not to be resorted to. What's the deciding factor? If any forms, if any images causes you into akusala, if any of the forms cause you to increase akusala and to decrease or diminish your kusala, so it's not something that you need to be resorted to. If any of the images forms help you to increase kusala and to diminish akusala, that means that's something that you need to. So those are the forms or images that you need to be resorted to, right? Let's say if any sound causing you to be performing akusala, then you should not need to be resorted to those sounds. If any sounds are helping you to increase your kusala that you have already, that you will create all in the future, those are the sounds you need to be resorted to. If any sounds taking you to the bad side or increasing your akusala, you should not be resorted to those sounds. So vice versa, all these cognizable sense faculties and their objects. And then the clothings, if any clothings, whatever your clothings, dresses, right, causing you to whatever the clothes causing you to increase akusala and diminishing kusala, then you should not be resorted to those clothes. If any of the clothings or clothes causing you to increase your kusala and then to diminish your akusala, those are the clothing that you need to be resorted to. So as the food, resting places, and the places where you live, like villages, towns, cities, districts, and also the persons. If any person in your life causing you to increase akusala and to diminish kusala, you should not be resorted to that person. If any person helps you to increase kusala, skillful side of you, and then to diminish the akusala, the unskillful side of you, so that's a good person to be resorted to. Now you get to understand that there are many deciding variables for you to increase your kusala, skillful side of you, and to diminish your akusala, that means the unskillful side of you. In order to make that happen, there are a number of ways that Buddha talks about here with Venerable Sariputta. The first one is bodily conduct, number 2, verbal conduct, number 3, mental conduct, number 4, your inclination of your mind, and then number 5, sanya patilabha, which we call the acquisition of perception. Number 6 is ditti patilabha, the acquisition of view. Number 7 is attabhava patilabha, the acquisition of yourself or individuality. Number 8, Number 8 is those sense faculties and objects, and how actually, or what those sense faculties and objects would bring you when you're dealing with those sense faculties and objects, whether they would bring you kusala or akusala, and based on that you can actually react to those things, or to be resorting not to be resorting to them. And then we talked about clothing, food, resting places, villages, towns, cities, districts, and persons. So if any of these deciding factors help you to increase your kusala, skillful side of you, that means you should be resorted to those people, objects, and the mentalities. Okay? If any of these things would cause you to increase your akusala and to diminish your kusala, then those are the things that you should not be resorted to. So resorting to and not resorting to are actually talked in this way. So you should take a look at these two sides, resorting and not resorting, and how you need to look at those two sides, resorting and not resorting, Sevitabbā and Asevitabbā, with these 16 types of deciding variables. I hope that you understood a little bit of this sutra and the topic. Once again, I want to recap the whole thing. What I talked about today was for what things we should be resorted to, for what things we should need not to be resorted to. So we talked about 16 type of deciding variables to talk about these things, and our emphasis was whether these 16 deciding variables cause you to increase your kusala or to decrease your akusala, or increase your akusala or decrease your kusala sign. So this is what we talked about today. I hope you understood the core of this sutra, Sevitabbāsevitabba Sutta. That's the 114th sutra in the Majjhima Nikāya. So thank you so much. Have a good day.